and his son was the celebrated Maharaj Raghu. From Maharaj Raghu came Aja, and from Aja was born the great personality Maharaj Dasharath. Text 2. Tasyapi Bhagavanesh Sakshat Brahmamayo Harihi Amshamshen Chaturdhagat Putratvam Prarthita Suraihi Ram Lakshmana Bharata Shatrugna Iti Samgyaya. Translation: being prayed for by the demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth Himself, directly appeared with His expansion and expansions of the expansion. Their holy names were Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrughna. These celebrated incarnations thus appeared in four forms as the sons of Maharaj Dasharath. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Purport. Lord Ramachandra and his brothers Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrughna are all Vishnu Tattva, not Jiva Tattva. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands into many, many forms. Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam, Brahma Samhita 5.33. Although they are one and the same, Vishnu Tattva has many forms and incarnations. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.39, Rama Dimurti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan. The Lord is situated in many forms, such as Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna. And these forms may exist in any part of His creation. All these forms exist permanently, eternally, as individual personalities of Godhead, and they resemble many candles, all equally powerful. Lord Ramachandra, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrughna, who, being Vishnu Tattva, are all equally powerful, became the sons of Maharaj Dasharath in response to prayers by the demigods. So very briefly, we'll touch upon the main points Prabhupada has enumerated here. Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva. Tattva means truth. Vishnu is that truth which is all pervading, and Jiva is that truth which is a part of the absolute truth. Srila Prabhupada, representing his Guru Parampara, the Gaudiya Parampara, was completely true to his lineage by making clear what this truth is. What is this world around us? What exactly is our position? Are we God? Were we God at one point of time, and now we have just kind of lost our touch? So is the Jiva like some Hollywood celebrity who is kind of lost, a bit rusty, but then you get another opportunity at some blockbuster, and then, oh, this person is not dead and gone. He still has some shine, or he or she still has some spark in them. And this world is not uniform. You don't find everyone equally happy, equally unhappy at the same time. So naturally there are comparisons. And somebody could be saying, I just want to keep up with the Joneses, I want to become big. Especially in India, for the last 60 years, our Bollywood variety of making big in life was some village boy or a girl, not a girl mainly, but mainly a boy, because for various reasons, uh, girls would not be venturing out to make it big in society. There could be a separate Bollywood understanding of that. But mostly, uh, this boy would come in a train to Mumbai, and after a hard struggle would become big and would go back to his village and then show everybody how he has made the big break. And I'm sure in America it could be in New York, people coming from either other regions of the world or from other parts of America and making it big in Wall Street or making it big on the West Coast. So the idea of improving your lifestyle, for what? And the answer is to enjoy. What's wrong with enjoyment? So Prabhupada kind of introduced the term sense gratification. Let me know after the class if any of you had heard this word and were comfortable with the meaning, sense gratification, before even you ventured into a Hare Krishna temple or got a book or participated in kirtan or whatever. So our Brahmatirtha Prabhu, who happens to be on the board of our Bhakti Center, as a young boy, Bob Cohen, somehow chose India for his Salvation Army volunteering work. And while he was in Bihar, he was told that the hippies have come to Bengal. And he was curious what hippies have to do with a Bengal village, 100 kilometers north of Calcutta. So somehow he came and he saw Prabhupada. He was there in that original hut when there was no construction, and Mayapur was just paddy fields, but grand plans. Prabhupada had all these big dreams, and he was introduced to this Salvation Army volunteer, and they struck a chord. Prabhupada liked his curious nature. Here is an intelligent boy, and he is asking questions. And Prabhupada was so pleased with his questions that he said, "We are going to collate all the questions you asked and the answers I have given into a book called Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers." And Bob said, "Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm very happy that I don't claim my questions were perfect." So, what do you mean by perfect? Not that there is an art form to asking a proper question, but these are the questions which almost everybody has. One thing I appreciate, I still do appreciate, that Prabhupada has encouraged us to ask questions. Of course, questions should be relevant. And in this age, we may have somebody may go on rambling. The questions could be like a 20 track. In India, we have these railway tracks, and your train can go from this track to the opposite end and again come back. But his questions were considered very apt, very relevant. And one thing which I really appreciate, it has uh, stuck in my mind, is Bob trying to tell Prabhupada that what's wrong with a normal life. I'm paraphrasing, what's wrong with a normal life. And Prabhupada, when he would see somebody walking in that territory would say, and what do you mean by a normal life? Says, well, just have a job, family, earn some money. And Prabhupada says, whose wealth? So the answer is my wealth. I have earned it. It's my job. So Prabhupada was building up the truth about this world, our position in this world. And he said, it's Krishna's money. How can you say it's your money? Well, I earned it with my hard work. So Krishna says, I am the ability, even a human being. Well, but I studied hard. I am the intelligence of the intelligent. So sometimes Bhagavad philosophy, the Gita philosophy, you know in your heart that you have been defeated, but you don't like to admit that. And philosophy sometimes is seen as a adventure of victories. You come to understand so many things, and therefore every understanding is like a victory. But here, especially in Bhagavad philosophy, it's very rare that somebody would come to a teacher and say that we are all part of God, right? He's the whole, we are the part, fragmental part. And our only concern is to serve Him eternally, right? Did I get it right? Normally, it doesn't happen like that. Why? Because of our long-standing association with matter. Prabhupada writes, alludes to that, saying that due to association with matter from time immemorial, we think that we are part of this material world. And that is the thing which needs to be changed, which needs to be rectified. So, do we need to have a materially terrible, torturous life, and that should be the criteria for progress in spiritual life? The idea is no. The answer is not that if you just are so miserable, automatically you will become spiritually enlightened. That doesn't happen like that. So then we go to the opposite extreme. If we have a real comfortable life, will that help us? That also doesn't seem to be the case. So what's the exact temperature at which kind of bhakti gets nourished? In the Bhagavad Gita, we talk in terms of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. You have to see that these are the four miseries of life: birth, old age, disease, death. And that day I was just thinking, whether Krishna tells any time that you can be happy in this material body, and I found a verse. Navadware Pure Dehi says the 9 gates, the city of 9 gates, Sukham Vashi. And I was like happy. Oh wow, Krishna is saying that you can be happy provided you fulfill certain conditions. And one of the main conditions of life in this material world is palanam, maintenance. So this is how I am bringing the connection of jivas lost in this world, jiva tattva. The tattva about a jiva is that he's lost. The tattva about Vishnu is never lost. Vishnu is always the boss, always the master. So when Vishnu comes as a king, the primary duty of a king is maintenance, palanam. In India, we commonly use the word palan, poshan. Palan is maintenance, poshan is nourishment. So just like in a normal family, the children are not just maintained, they are also nourished. So Krishna comes as the ideal king and he nourishes. So this particular incarnation of Ram is especially noted for this act of palanam, that is nourishment. So there are so many different ways in which in which Prabhupada has brought out this point of Lord Ramachandra. In one particular class, Prabhupada said that we should be we should be careful about the mood of the Lord. So the mood of Lord Ram is Krishna, but his mood is different. His mood is he's an ideal king. So most of you must be aware of the story, but the simple understanding is that Lord Ram's father, Maharaj Dashrath, he was a great devotee and a Kshatriya king. So Dashrath Maharaj gave his wife, he had three wives, a promise that I will fulfill two of your, ask from me two boons. And it was on a battlefield that Kaikeyi had saved him from certain death. So later, Kaikeyi's mind was poisoned by one of her maidservants, and she said that I want two boons. Tomorrow you are going to crown your eldest son Ram as king, and I feel that Ram should not be crowned king, coronated as king. My son should be the king, and Ram should be banished to the forest. So Dashrath said that, all right, if you want that Ram should be king, your Ram should not be the king. I'm okay with that. But why banish my son? And she said, no. If allowed, uh, Ram may actually try to harm my son. Now, from all points of view, this thing looks just like any mundane kind of understanding, and there is a lot of emotions in the story of Ramchandra. In fact, till today, the moment you mention Ram, people forget that he was the ideal king. I just made a quick survey of who's the ideal king, and from the Veda base, the names which came up were Maharaj Yudhishthir, Maharaj Ambarish, Prithu Maharaj, but they were all followers of Lord Ram. In fact, there is a word in Sanskrit, it has also come in Indian lingo, Ram Rajya. That means government as if it is a government of Lord Ram. And what are the salient features of Ram Rajya? Number one, Palanam, full maintenance of the subjects. Many times you may also find some very astute observers understanding that there is something wrong with society. There's something wrong with society. What exactly is it wrong? You find videos of dogs and cats being cuddled, and people taking a stray dog and giving him a home. Or so Prabhupada says, an ideal king will not discriminate between these animal species. That you cut up the flesh of one particular animal, and while eating that in the form of a hamburger, you are discussing, let us stop cruelty to animals. Let us have more animal shelters. What they mean is for dogs and cats, specifically in the Western world. So, where does this discriminatory thing come from? It shows a lack of enlightenment. So, Rabindra Swarup Prabhu has written an excellent series of essays. One of them is called the Varnashram Manifesto, and he compares how the Vedic system of intellectuals, administrators, farmers and producers, and the service sector, they also were there in the Western world. And before being coronated, a king would require permission from the pontiff or from the pope, or some religious ceremony had to be observed before he would become king. But gradually, the intellectuals could not support society with proper wisdom. And therefore, the crumbling began and is still crumbling today. The moment we say king, there is an abhorrence, there is some kind of a hatred. Oh, no, 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 we don't want a king. Especially sometimes a leader lives very lavishly. Oh, he lives like a king. At the same time, the our lingo has, I'm talking of the entire world's lingo, it has not changed. Somebody is the chess king. In India, there is a guy who has a big vaccine business and he's called the vaccine king. Now, so what I'm saying is, you cannot take that out of your mindset. But sociologists everywhere are convinced that please do not put any king anywhere, because king means there'll be no proper ruling, there'll be no proper maintenance. This guy will just stuff his pockets. Interestingly, I found one paragraph where Prabhupada is saying, okay, we don't have monarchy today. Instead of that, we have democracy. But he said, instead of one person looting, we have a whole committee looting. What's the difference? Oh, there are 17 political parties in this country. See how liberal we are. See how democratic we are. But what's the difference between them? They are just shades of black here and there a little bit. It is a fact that almost across the world, whenever politicians have a motion or a proposal to increase their salaries, their perks, their travel benefits, or their retirement benefits, now this is not just India or this country or that country, everywhere, wherever there is a so-called democratic setup, that day there are no quarrelings, no bickerings, and every political party votes for that. So, which means, as Prabhupada rightly said, they are simply interested in stuffing their pockets. Honestly, I don't have a solution for that. In fact, nobody has done a solution which is like very practical, like tomorrow you should do that and you get a good king. No. But there are merits in the democratic system, especially Prabhupada when he started our GBC program. He knew that collective decision making will be a bit tough, slow, whatever, but at least it is better than just one person dictating. So Krishna comes as the ideal king. He sets up certain norms. I'll just give you a brief idea of how tough it would be to be the ideal king from Vedic standards. A Brahmana was losing his sons. His wife would give birth and the baby would die. What did he do? He came to the king, he came to Arjuna's palace and said, my babies are dying, and braced for this response. You are responsible. Now today if somebody comes and tells me, you are a temple president here, I said, oh yeah, in one way. I'm not able to chant my rounds. You are responsible. I would say, what am I supposed to do? I'm not able to chant my rounds. So who's going to take care of me? Or if somebody says, I lost my job during COVID pandemic, you're responsible. You're the president of the community, you're the leader here. You're not worshipping Radha Murugadar properly. I lost my job. We don't do that. I hope so. But at one point of time, people would be having this kind of requirement from their king. And believe it or not, grains would be growing, crops would be flourishing, rains would be falling, everybody was happy, and the only cause of this was an ideal king was ruling. The king would be austere, the king would be charitable, the king would be enlightened. How do you protect the system from being corrupt? Yudhishthir Maharaj is considered Dharmaraj, very intelligent, but he would also be counseled by Bhishma Dev. So, to sum it up, even in our modern setup, like in a family, the parents are having that position of, I'm not saying the husband is king or the wife is queen, we don't go into that, but they have taken the role. In a school, the teacher is having that kind of a position. As long as that person, you are a leader of a project, if you are guided by somebody wiser than you have a greater chance of effectively conveying the role of a proper administrator or a proper king. And that's what we see from Lord Ramchandra's lifestyle. Uh, Prabhupada has just given a very brief kind of understanding of who these four brothers are. They are all Vishnu Tattva. They are, none of them is considered to be in the category of a Jiva, and that's very important. So whatever Ramchandra did was for the sake of a pastime, and at the same time, there is so much to learn. From Krishna's pastimes, there's not much to be imitated. In fact, nothing's to be imitated. Krishna's marrying 16,108 wives, or his swallowing a forest fire, or his dancing with the gopis. None of these are fit for imitation. But from Lord Rama's lifestyle, ideal king, ideal prince, ideal warrior, ideal husband, ideal friend, ideal foe, ideal follower of principles, so many ideals. And technically it is called Maryada Purushottam, the Supreme Lord who follows the rules to the dotted line. So that's the reputation of Lord Ramchandra. Hare Krishna, thank you very much for being such a kind and patient audience. Tantra Srimad Bhagavat Mahapuran ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments or any questions?
Hi, Krishna. Thank you so much. Mother Athena has some questions.
Yes, Athena.
Hare Krishna, Shyamananda Prabhu. Dandavat pranams. I was very excited to see you on the schedule. I was eagerly waiting for you to speak. I know I have a million questions, and I'll try to keep it down to two, if that's okay. I know you'll provide very elaborate and thoughtful answers. So my first one, and I hope I can formulate it properly. It's interesting. Well, one, we know that not a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanctioning. And I appreciate Chaitanya Charan Prabhu gave this analogy or an explanation saying, Krishna does not plan for our mistakes, but he will use his plans like in our mistakes, meaning we have free will. You make a mistake, you make a bad decision, and he will morph his plans given your mistake to, of course, allow his will to happen. And this makes me think of, for example, what happened of Ram's banishment. In one sense, we've always taken it as a Leela. I'm not sure if, of course, we know one Srimad Bhagavatam in this lifetime or this Kali Yuga, but we know that Srimad Bhagavatam is eternal, and perhaps there are other, this Leela happens cycle after cycle. And I'm assuming the same thing happens where Ram gets banished and he now is to show that he's the ideal king and ideal subject, ideal son. That is my assumption. I'm not sure if you want to correct me on that. So if that were the case, then maybe this was Krishna's Leela. However, for something, this then begs the question, well, in one sense, Krishna, I would think if that weren't the case, if I don't even think about the other yugas or this Leela constantly happening, you can say there's evil and Krishna allows bad things to happen. And either way, he would have shown Ramchandra's greatness as great king, whether or not he were banished. If he were coronated king, there would be other Leelas. But given that there's free will and the queen decided to listen to Kaikeyi, the crooked mage servant, he allowed this all to happen. That the proper way of understanding? However, if we do believe that this is a Leela, then he planned for horrible things to happen. And that just makes you question, for example, say, I know this is an extreme, but the Holocaust, you would say, I know we give the example, well, Krishna allows bad things to happen. It is the material world that is suffering. And as horrible as it sounds, maybe some people need to be dealt their karma. So while he didn't have an active hand in implanting, say, Hitler and implanting all these horrible things to happen, there's free will and there's, anarthas and people have demoniac natures, and he allows it to happen. And in that sense, he will use that in one sense. He allows it, and then the karma is dealt, say people unfortunately need to suffer or die at a certain time. I know that was jumbled, but hopefully my question made sense. Would you mind commenting? And I can clarify anything if I didn't make sense. Thank you so much. That's question number one.
See, this could be very well I would call it an intellectual trap, that something terrible happened to one particular community, and if we just brush it off saying that I think your community did something and they deserved it and it was all for the good, it may sound absolutely bad, crazy, and it could be like the height of being hard-hearted. So it is not like just by reading some Vedic literature, we can understand the secrets behind each and every incident in the universe. Number one. When we say that, like when you read the Ramayana, you find that Ram and Sita got married and they were staying very happily. And the demigods were concerned that, hey, if they just remain happily, who's going to take interest in the bigger problem? And that is the problem of Ravana being who he is. So they were thinking that unless he's removed from his cozy atmosphere, he's not going to go out and do a certain part of his duties. In fact, in Krishna Lila also, Narad Muni comes and he meets Krishna and he gives him a whole list of things what he would be doing once he leaves Vrindavan. And sometimes it is compared to a secretary coming to her boss and says that, so John, Wednesday morning appointment, breakfast appointment with so-and-so, Wednesday afternoon, this meeting, Thursday morning, this meeting. Now, who has decided that I'm going to go to these meetings? The boss. The boss has informed the secretary that these are the appointments I have accepted. The secretary on her own or his own cannot tell that, would you like to take one more assignment? No. So Narad Muni is telling you will go out and you will kill the demons and then you will kill Kamsa and then you will reinstate Ugrasen on the throne and you will do this and you will do that. There is a sweet meaning behind this, that Krishna, when he comes to Braj, is completely hypnotized by the Braja atmosphere. And in one sense, he doesn't want to go out and do the yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujamyaham. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. So where is the vinashaya cha dushkritam of those who did not come to Vrindavan? Those who came to Vrindavan, Krishna killed them. What about those who did not come? So Krishna has to be taken out. So who is supposed to do that job? It fell on Akrur, and the gopis cursed him for that. Now he might say, hey, I'm just doing my role and I'm not doing anything which I don't want to do. Anyway, so that this world will have evil is something a given. This world will have evil. Why? Because it is the shadow world. Evil is born through the lower modes, and whenever the lower modes become prominent, the Bhagavatam has enough hints as to when the Sattva Guna becomes prominent, demigods flourish. When Rajaguna becomes prominent, uh, asuras flourish. And when Tamoguna becomes prominent, bhutas, pretas, and other hobgoblins, they flourish. So it's more like a question of the various modes and how they bring a particular kind of mentality into prominence. Indra is ruling over the world. That means Satvaguna is prominent. Indra disrespects his guru. That's not like a small misdemeanor. It's not like a small felony, or it's not like the cop will let you go. All right, one citation. I won't keep anything in the books. No, you took a wrong turn. Don't do that. No. Someone like Indra disrespecting his guru to the extent of throwing the Mahaprasad garland in front of this elephant carrier, and the elephant just trampling that garland. A huge depletion of Sattva-guna resources all over the universe. And Shukracharya is very clever, astute, shrewd enough to understand what's happening. And he tells the Asuras, charge. No way the Asura, the demigods can win now. And that's what happens. So this material world is a play of the three gunas. The three gunas may have someone like Hitler coming up. So you may say, is Krishna behind the cause of the rise of someone so evil like Hitler? No way. Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, I'm not concerned with who wins the marathon, who wins the Euro final, who wins the World Cup in cricket. I don't make last minute changes in something and make somebody win or make somebody lose. Udasina vadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. I'm sitting completely unaffected. I just see who is using or misusing their independence, which is given by me. And when they cross a certain line, when it's time for me to intervene, I do it in a very royal way. So like Arjuna was told, the time has come that these vast armies need to be annihilated. Are you going to do it? If yes, go ahead, do it and take the credit. And now if you are giving me a philosophy class here on the battlefield, oh, I can't do that. There will be social projects which would be hampered, and I don't want to be the cause of destruction and da 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 da. That's fine. Step aside, and I will show to you that I have already killed them. And he shows in the 11th chapter. So this is what has happened already. So Krishna will allow his part and parcels to mess around, if I can use that word with your permission, only up to a certain extent, nothing beyond that. So if someone like Hitler or Stalin or Lenin or Napoleon or whoever, if they want to go ahead with their nonsense and say that Krishna made me do it, no way. You are personally responsible for each and every act. Now, whether all those who were victimized by certain people, should we tell them that it was your due, this was something which you did? That's not how acharyas respond. Acharyas are not heartless robots. They are not here to win over somebody with just some intellectual understanding. It's like a small kid. If the kid falls or somewhere and you may say, that was your karma. How can the kid understand what karma and what akarma and what vikarma is? So, Srimad Bhagavatam acts as a mother who kind of embraces you and wipes your tears, and sometimes like a teacher with a stick in her hand, teaches us sternly, sometimes as a father gives fatherly wisdom. It fulfills various roles. These are some thoughts.
Thank you so much, Shyamananda Prabhu. If I could just summarize and say it back, the main takeaway is that, of course, Krishna allows horrible things to happen and evil, and because it's the shadow world. However, he will also have leelas where there are, I guess, quote unquote, bad things happen for a particular purpose. So Ravana needs to be killed. We need to annihilate some demons. However, we can't apply one incident to explain all other incidences and horrible things that happen in the material world. I guess the one part that, thank you, that is a little fuzzy, because then you can, it's like the gray area that you're not sure, but maybe I'll just leave it that, that Krishna will do things up to a certain extent. And that's going, well, what's that extent? Because he will, well, he wanted to kill all the kings or the Kshatriya class. So that also sounds, I mean, from a, like a
just one line which inspires me. There is a Ravana on the macro stage, on the world stage, and he's big and he's huge and he's cruel and he's evil. And there is a Ravana in our own minds, a small micro Ravana who also wants to enjoy whatever he sees, whatever he wants. He wants to possess whatever he wants. So the holy name in Kali Yuga will be the Lord Ram, who enters the mini micro universe of our mind. And because at the macro level, Lord Ram has killed Ravana, we will have that faith that if we allow Lord Ram to enter into that micro world stage between our 2 ears, as they say, there too Lord Ram will become victorious. And that kind of faith is a necessary thing for every sadhaka, every practitioner. So Krishna Lila works on 2 levels. One is the huge cosmic level, and one is the individual level.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful and really helpful. Thank you. And my next question is quite, hopefully, easy and a little simpler. And I'm not sure if, I'm sure you have a great answer for it, but I guess my question is a little more technical of why it's called Vishnu Tattva. You defined it as Tattva meaning truth, and Vishnu is all pervading. However, why is it not Krishna Tattva, as Krishna is the original flame? We know even Vishnu, I could be wrong, comes from, I think Vishnu comes from Balaram, Balaram comes from Krishna. So Vishnu isn't even the original, Krishna is. So shouldn't it be Krishna Tattva, the original Supreme Person of Godhead? Everything emanates from him instead of Vishnu?
Okay, not very complicated. Why are we called Vaishnavas? Why not Krishnavas? because technically there is no difference between Vishnu and Krishna. And whenever the word Vishnu is used, like some time ago, there was a big debate about Vrindayai, Tulsi Deviyai, Priyayai, Keshavasya, Vishnu Bhakti. Hey, what Vishnu Bhakti? Yeah, what is it? Vishnu Bhakti? There is Krishna Bhakti. Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi. No difference. Absolutely no difference. Krishna is called Vishnu because he is all pervading, and Vishnu, the original Vishnu, is Krishna. Through the Brahma Vimohan Leela, where Lord Brahma gets deluded, Krishna shows him to be the original of so many Vishnus. So, I mean, at least in my mind, when Prabhupada said, God in his office is Vishnu, God in his home is Krishna. Full stop. I didn't have any problem with that. The same person, different attire, different role, different mood, essentially the same person. So don't worry. This is not a very topic, something that will upset you. Interchangeably, Krishna and Vishnu can be used interchangeably.
Thank you so much, Ramananda Prabhu. This would launch into a much bigger discussion, but I am mindful of your time, and if there are others who have questions. And
Goshan Prabhu, should we allow anybody else, or do we have time? I'm sure
yes, bro, please. As long as you have time, we can. And If I can ask one question
Oh,
before
sure.
anybody has. In many of these discussions, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada purports, there seems to be like a what I call like a crossover between spiritual culture and political culture, like in
Hmm.
terms of how we see so many kings. But today it seems like exactly opposite. Like they don't actually support each other, or like spiritualists seem to be wanting to keep away from politics, political people wanting to be like not identified with anything to do with spirituality in general. So is this because of the degradation of the Kali Yuga, or is there anything that is missing on the part of either on the spiritualist or on the political people?
Well, mainly it is because of the misbehavior of the intellectuals, the Brahmanas. Prabhupada says that Shungi, when he cursed Maharaj Parikshit without rhyme and reason, it was not his position to curse such a great Rajarshi like Parikshit. And the beauty of the thing is, Parikshit could have, all he needed was to say, I don't accept this curse. Just see how powerful Maharaj Parikshit was. And he was not cursed by Samika Rishi, by somebody who is actually mature. Because after that, the father tells his son, what did you do? Do you know how immature an act is this? The world bereft of a Rajarshi like Maharaj Parikshit would be reduced to ruin. But then Parikshit Maharaj said that no, if the time for Kali has come, I'll agree to bow down to Krishna's wishes. And if I need to show an example of how attached I was doing duties on behalf of Krishna, I should also show how detached I am because Krishna wants that. So that was used by Kali, the cursing of a great Kshatriya king, a Rajarshi, by an inexperienced Brahmana. And in fact, Vishnu Chakripal also explained that why was a boy used, a mere boy used? Because it can be accepted that, well, boys of his age can act immaturely. And that's why this thing was used. And thus began the slow decline. And in almost all world religions, world history, Egyptian, Roman, then here in India, the Chinese civilization, everywhere you have powerful individuals with a great choleric mentality trying to control, administer, rule, and they would always be guided by some great Brahmana person. Uh, Chanakya guiding King Vikramaditya. So, I mean, Chandragupta. So, in Europe also it was there. But when the lavish lifestyles of the kings that would, and especially in terms of, in times of famines and inequality of incomes, the kings would not even know what are the hardships faced by their common people. So this happened generation after generation after generation. So it's like the whole world kind of revolted against the idea of one person being given the divine rod of chastisement. Kings actually used to hold a rod. If you Google some old medieval kings, they always had a rod in their hand. So even today in India, we have the word, like I went to one village, uh, the local Dandadhikari, age-old system. Danda, the rod, Adhikari, one who is holding the danda, should be giving proper justice. But if you look at the office there, it's a hotbed of corruption. For every file, every paper to move, between two papers, you have to put currency notes, otherwise it doesn't go anywhere. So, so this corruption of Kshatriyas is can be traced to their idea that, hey, if the Brahmanas can be corrupt, why blame us? So Brahmanas become inefficient or corrupt, Kshatriyas become corrupt. They stop protecting Vaishyas, Vaishyas become corrupt. When the top three are corrupt, the Shudras say, oh, what's our fault? There is no one to guide us. So why blame us? So in this way, the whole society is practically of Shudra level, intellectual wise we are speaking. So if you tell them that, if you elect me, I will make liquor very approachable and available. They say, oh, he's a good king. Let us vote for him. So politicians give people the illusion that it's all your power. I'm just acting on your behalf. But it's not true. So they cheat the people by giving them so-called power. And then after some time, another cheat comes and he says that, or she says that, let us unseat this fellow. So at Shudra level, you feel happiness in propping somebody, calling Jai, 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 vote for him, wow, wow, good, good. And there is a perverse satisfaction in seeing somebody pulled down. Both these things actually are kind of not proper. That if an improper person gets to the top, like when King Vena became the king, the law and order improved immediately. There were no thieves and crooks and scoundrels. You may say that's not bad, is it? No, he was the biggest crook. So when the biggest criminal is sitting up there, obviously it doesn't give scope for lesser criminals. But then the Brahmanas came and said, it's our responsibility, we should not allow him. And by just chanting a mantra, in fact, the word is they just uttered a hum, just a one, not even a proper let you die or you may die. No, just hum krita, gone. So that power is not there today, obviously. But these are some thoughts on your point.
Thank you, bro, for explaining how the importance of the Brahmanas as well as the Kshatriyas in keeping up that connection between the spiritual and political culture. I think Athena said she has another question if you have time.
Well, no, I don't think. Oh, yeah, she said that. Athena, would you like to talk now, or we can have some discussion later also?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you so much, Shyamananda Prabhu, for your time on this Sangha. I hope to probe your brain at a different time. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So
Thank you so much for taking
thank
your
you
time.
all. Tanda pranam, vancha kalpatarubhashya kripa sindhubhya vacha patanam pavanebhyo Vaishnava. Srila
Please,
Prabhupada ki
Shyamananda Prabhu
jai.
ki
Jai Shri Radha Murli ki jai.